Hello, I'm Richard Lee, President of Alliance for Korea United USA. Today's interview will be with Dr. Suzanne Scholte, American human rights activist and congressional candidate. She is the president of the Defense Forum Foundation. She is also vice co-chair of the U.S. Committee for Human Rights in North Korea and chairman of Free North Korea Radio. She was made an honorary citizen of Seoul 2008. How are you, Dr. Suzanne Scholte?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Okay. I have here two AKU USA Executive Vice Presidents, Alex Choi. Hi, Alex. And William Kill.
Hello.
Yeah. Alex and William will share questions to Dr. Scholte. William will start the first question. William, please.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon to you, Dr. Scholte. Again, my name is William Kill. I'm one of the Executive Vice President of the AKU USA out in West Coast. Actually, I'm in Los Angeles. So good morning to you, but actually good afternoon to you as well. Again, thank you for your taking time to do this very important interview with us in the midst of your very busy schedule. And also, I'd like to take this opportunity to personally thank you for your leadership and service in advocating and advancing the human rights of North Koreans for decades. And I'm going to start with my first question. For a free, unified Korea, sending information to North Korea is obviously very important. And can you please tell us the various methods you and your colleagues are using to send information to North Korea? And also talk about the Free North Korea Radio.
Well, I'm very, very passionate about this topic. I've been working on this issue for over 20 years, and the first decade I spent really trying to educate people about the fact that, about the tragic situation that was going on in North Korea. But some years back, we changed our focus to not only talking about the human rights violations in North Korea, but trying to change the hearts and minds of the people in North Korea with the truth, because we absolutely believe, we're very passionate that the truth will set them free, that the most important thing we can do is to get information into North Korea to bring about peaceful change by the people themselves in North Korea. And so with that thought, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. We have been working with the North Korean defectors who have the best techniques. They know how to get information in. They know how to frame things that South Koreans and Americans, we don't always appreciate because we haven't lived in a regime that blocked information, that brainwashed us from childhood. So they also know how best to tailor the information that's gotten in. So we're trying to help them do this through by land, by sea, and by air. Tragically, the Moon administration has been trying to stop all these techniques, all these efforts at the direct request of the Kim regime. And Kim Jong-un and Kim Yo-jong have demanded, for example, that they turn off the loudspeakers at the DMZ. Well, the loudspeakers, the majority of the North Korean military is stationed at the DMZ. So they would hear this information that was coming over the loudspeakers, but they shut down the loudspeakers. And now they've worked to stop the balloon launches, and they've worked to stop the rice bottle launches. I wanted to show you just this quick, this is a cartoon that came out back some years back that attacking me. And in my pouch, I'm a kangaroo, and in my pouch are a radio, a microphone, leaflets. My baby kangaroo has a Japanese bandana, a symbol of Japan, because we work closely with the Japanese groups, the human rights groups, and then a cross, because they're terrified of the Christians, right? Because that's a direct attack on the regime. So anyway, very quickly, by air, balloon launches have been extremely effective, but they're being stopped by the regime at the request of the Kim dictatorship. And perhaps the most controversial of the balloon launchers is Park Sun-hak. This is one of the launches here. Why is he so controversial? There's 10 groups that have been doing balloon launches, but he's the most controversial because he's been directly attacking the regime for being murderers of of Otto Warmbier, which they were just telling the people, your dictator killed this innocent Ohio college student. Also family members of, he's killed his own uncle, his half-brother. So the balloon launches have been very effective. And I want to say that Operation Gilly was a technique that was perfected by the American military, and the South Koreans used to do the balloon launches because Operation Gilly was truth, getting truth in North Korea. So that's one thing, is the leaflets. Another technique, of course, has been the by land over the border. And a couple, again, defector groups, the North Korean People's Liberation Front, former military, the North Korea Intellectual Solidarity, which is the elites, they joined together to start using the border to get no-tells in. And no-tells became very popular in North Korea, but it was the North Korean defectors that came up with the idea of getting the no-tells in. And of course, they were also sending in USBs and information across the border with South Korean soap operas, movies, anything they could do to get across the border, get information in. And the regime, of course, has responded to that by trying to block the border. But land, getting information in by land, also they were using drones. Chung Kwang-il of No Chain was successfully using drones to get across the border. And then by sea, that has become a very popular method. I can tell you right now, we're still doing by sea, which is the rice bottle launches. This terrifies Kim Jong-un regime. But this is an example of a rice bottle. There's rice in here, there's a Bible, there's a SD card with South Korean soap operas, there's parasite medicine, there's a US $1 bill, and they've been sending these in by water. And why were they doing that? Because a North Korean defector remembered when he was a soldier patrolling the coastline, seeing trash from South Korea wash ashore. So here he is many, many years later, he's in South Korea, he goes, oh, we can reach them by water. So there is an argument about which one is most effective, radio broadcasting, drones, rice bottle launches, all of them are important. All of them are really critical. So what we're trying to do is do everything we can to get information in. And I'll close with this. I know I've gone a long time on one question, but as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. But these are the things that the Moon administration is trying to stop. And it's really a tragic that they're doing that, because this is the exact kind of thing we should be doing more of. We should be doing balloon launches every day. We should be sending in PPE, rice, food, everything we can. And then with radio broadcasting, I'm very passionate about Free North Korea Radio. Free North Korea is a very unique operation. The programming is 100% created by North Korean defectors for North Korean defectors, but 100% is of the financing for the transmission is covered by Americans through my foundation, the Defense Forum Foundation. We cover 100% of the shortwave transmission cost. Americans, Korean Americans, churches, individual business people, all kinds of folks all across America help support this radio station. And it's become the most popular single-hour broadcasting into North Korea based on surveys, and just recently got ranked the #1 website in South Korea for media entities. But we know that this is all important. The truth will set them free. And that's why the Moon government's trying to stop it, because he's trying to help the dictatorship stay in power.
Thank you very much for your passionate and yet very informative answer to question number 1. And I'm going to jump right over to question number 3. It's somewhat related, but you could bear with me. As you know, North Korea's dictator, Kim Jong-un's incessant and relentless efforts in amassing and developing nuclear arsenal and intercontinental ballistic missile capabilities are endangering the global peace and security, while millions of innocent North Koreans are dying and suffering from various diseases and famine due to food shortages and inadequate medical supplies every day, resulting from the COVID-19 border blockade imposed by Kim Jong-un's government, as well as natural disasters and UN sanctions, among others. My question is, how can Korean Americans and organizations such as Alliance for Korea United USA help to relieve the sufferings of innocent North Koreans? I'd like to hear a short-term and a long-term advice from you. Thank you.
Well, I think short-term, the most critical thing we can do right now is to help the North Korean, the refugees that have escaped by supporting the Underground Railroad, trying to help North Koreans get out and get to safety, but also support the work of the defectors. And I'll just give you some examples. One of the things our I'm also chair of the North Korea Freedom Coalition. And one of the things that we've been very successful at is connecting people that want to help North Korean groups. For example, we have connected a wonderful man who is the son of a Holocaust survivor. His father was orphaned during the Holocaust. He's a successful doctor here in the United States, and he has a passion for orphans. So we were able to connect him with a South Korean missionary who's sheltering North Korean orphans and rescuing them and getting them to safety. We have a member of our coalition who's a very strong Christian. She's gotten involved, actively helping support and finance the rice bottles. And as I mentioned before, our foundation is 100% supporting Free North Korea Radio. So I think the most important thing on the short term, especially for the next 6 months, is to get involved helping North Korean defector NGOs. They're so beat down. The Moon administration has tried to totally cut them off from all support. First time in the history that the Committee for the Democratization of North Korea, which was founded by Hwang Jong-yap, even during the sunshine years, it got support from the South Korean government. But even that committee lost all of its support. And we saw the death, the starvation death of a mother and son, North Koreans in Seoul, starved to death because of a lack of support from the Moon administration. So it's really important for the short term, especially right now, that we get involved with these groups, because we're hoping that by March of next year, that the South Koreans will elect somebody who cares about the human rights of the North Korean people and the freedoms in South Korea, because they currently have a president that only cares about the survival of the regime, not the freedoms and liberties that have been so much blood was shed for South Korea. So I'm hoping that in the next elections, somebody who cares about the people of North Korea, whether they were born north or south of the DMZ, will be elected. So this is a really critical time. And then for the long term, I think that I would like to see a push for humanitarian assistance. We need to forecast and broadcast to the people of North Korea that they're being warned about another arduous march. We know that there's starvations, death from COVID happening in North Korea. They're lying about the conditions there. We know enough to know they're very serious. But even Kim Jong-un is warned about another arduous march. We need to remind the people of North Korea that what happened during the arduous march never needed to happen. There was enough humanitarian aid that was given during that time period that not a single North Korean needed to starve. So why did people starve? Because Kim Jong-il used humanitarian assistance as a weapon against the people of North Korea, cutting off, for example, all of North Hamgyong province because he thought they were disloyal. And that's where we saw massive starvation. So we need to be broadcasting to people in North Korea, the South Koreans and the Americans, we are not your enemy. Kim Jong-un is your enemy. Your suffering is because of that dictatorship. And we should be offering to send humanitarian assistance and COVID vaccines, COVID relief, anything that they need, humanitarian medical assistance, but making it very clear that whoever goes to deliver this humanitarian assistance will remain until the intended recipients receive it, so that the disaster that happened last time doesn't happen again. So Kim Jong-un's staged to kill millions of North Koreans unless we act. So I think the long term is that these are the things we should be broadcasting. We are not their enemy. We really care about them. What is it the Americans want? They want North Koreans to have the same freedoms and human rights that South Koreans and Americans have. And so that's what we should be taking advantage of this time period when you have a regime that's about to allow the starvation of millions of his own people happen, to step in and say, no, we're not going to let this go on, and create more pressure on that regime to open up to humanitarian aid. But again, make sure that any aid's delivered, we have to be there to see it reach the intended recipient, not be used as a weapon. So
Thank you so much.
Short term, long term.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Dr. Scholte, this is Alex Choi. Thank you for your time again. This question actually further goes into this last question that William just asked, which is human rights is the universal value for every human family, and its purpose, and it is a purpose of the free and unified Korea. So can you tell us how the Korean American community can work with the US government and the UN to support the North Korean and defectors' human rights?
Well, first of all, I want to remind your listeners that it is because of the Korean American community that the U.S. Congress passed the North Korea Human Rights Act in 2004. We, through the North Korea Freedom Coalition, we had so many Korean Americans involved in this effort. In 2004, we had a rally on the Capitol Hill called North Korea Freedom Day, and we had the largest turnout of people for North Korea human rights that had ever happened outside the Korean Peninsula. So I think that activism, I just want to be just a reminder of how important these voices, when you raise your voices, that's what led to the passage of that legislation. Because people showed up and they went to their senators and they went to their congressmen and they said, we really care about the people of North Korea. Because again, back then, just as today, they keep focusing on the nuclear issue at the expense of the people of North Korea. So I think engaging with Congress is really important. Raising your voices with your senators and your congressmen is really important. I would, for right now, I think a priority, we're going to talk about this in a minute about the end of war declaration, but I think a priority right now is encouraging to keep human rights at the forefront. We know North Korea just, tested missiles again, right? So this is a manipulation. It's to shift our focus back on the nuclear threat and to take our eyes away from the suffering of the North Korean people. We have to call the attention of the administration and the Congress to remember to keep the focus on human rights. We should be encouraging the Biden administration to appoint a special envoy. We should make sure that human rights is never sidelined again, as it has been done by Bush, Clinton, Obama was very cautious on not sidelining human rights, but we want to be sure that human rights stays at the forefront, and also encouraging our government to support the work of the defectors getting information in, and also I think with encouraging the UN too to follow through on the Commission of Inquiry, because the Commission of Inquiry on human rights in North Korea, conclusively found that crimes against humanity were happening. Well, if crimes against humanity are happening every day, why aren't we doing more to stop them? So I think following through on what the UN COI, they gave a whole range of recommendations that we need to be calling for those things, shutting down the political prison camps, for example, allowing freedom of movement for the people of North Korea. So these are the ways that we can engage. And I think just a reminder that when the people speak out, it makes a difference. We always talk about the complete CVID, the complete irreversible verification, dismantlement of
Verifiable.
Yeah, verifiable. Well, I call it CVIF. The complete, verifiable, irreversible freedom is what's needed for North Korea.
Right. So President Moon Jae-in, in his last visit to the UN, has actually proposed to declare a formal end to the Korean War. President Moon said that this would bring an era of complete peace. And Kim Jo-young, Kim Jong-un's sister in North Korea, responded that this was, quote, an interesting and an admirable idea, end quote. With North Korea's continuous human rights abuses, wouldn't this normalize and accept North Korea's bad behavior?
Yes. The end of war declaration is a deception from the pit of hell. It was concocted by the Kim regime as a way to undermine South Korea. It seems very innocuous. I mean, it's been a ceasefire since 1953. Why not send an end of war declaration? Why do we continue? Why not sign it? It seems very innocuous,
right? But
it's a lie. It's a lie from the pit of hell. And it's been pushed by the Kim regime. It's being pushed by pro-North Korean actors in the United States of America, within our, pushing that, and in South Korea. But let me explain, this end of war declaration has the potential to totally undermine South Korea's freedoms. And the reason why I say that is the minute a document like that, the minute the ink is dry on such an end of war declaration, you will see massive protests at the American bases in South Korea. And what American mother or father is going to want their son or daughter serving in a country where they're yelling, Yankee, go home, imperialist Yankee wolves, go home, we hate you, which is what will happen. The pro-North Korean actors are very well organized, and they will start demonstrating, look at what they're doing with that, trying to block that. And what is that? It's totally for South Korea's defense. How can you be against something that's preserving South Korea's, from protecting South Korea from potential attack by North Korea. How could you be against that? But they've been demonstrating against that. So imagine it'll unleash these people to go, calling for this. And remember, this was discussed during President Carter's administration. This was also discussed during President Bush's administration. So that's what I fear, is that this is a setup. It looks innocent, but it's actually based on trying to get the American troops home and away from off the Korean Peninsula. So I really fear for how this is being portrayed. But again, it's a deception and it's completely wrong. And the fact that Kim Yo-jong is so hot on the idea should tell you it's a bad idea.
Right, right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Scholte. It was a very fascinating interview. And I'm sure that our audiences know more facts about North Korean human rights issues and how to improve their lives. Thank you so much again.
I did want to mention
good time for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I did want to mention one thing about the refugees, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Because I know I talked about the end of word declaration, but one of the things that Alex mentioned was our appeals to President Moon about the refugees. And I just want to say really quickly, this is an urgent matter that requires our attention right now, because we have been calling on the Moon administration to do all they can to rescue the refugees in China, the North Koreans that are in prison at this moment. Quite a number of them are Christians. And it's a unique situation, unlike any time in the history of the North Korean refugees crisis. And remember, over 33,000 refugees have escaped that are in South Korea alone. There's hundreds and hundreds all over the world, but they've successfully made their way in South Korean society. And I want to credit the South Korean government for setting up the facility Hanwhan to help them with this resettlement. But we have to remember, right now at this moment, there's at least 600 to 1,200 refugees in immediate danger that are in detention in China. Because North Korea closed its border because of COVID, China has not been able to force them back. If they do force them back, 100% will be tortured, 100% will be detained, some will be executed, especially because all the refugees that are in detention right now escaped. They had to have means. So I would say that every refugee is in grave peril because they had to either be a Korean Workers' Party member, or they had support from families in South Korea to be able to finance the escape out of North Korea, because it's so dangerous right now. That means that any one of them are sent back or subject to public execution. So it's an urgent matter. So because of this widespread support, we sent a letter. Alex mentioned the appeals we've been sending. We did do a letter that was signed by 24 former US government officials representing every single presidency since Richard Nixon. We had Obama, Bush, Trump, people that signed that letter appealing to Moon on behalf of those refugees. And they're still in detention. The border's still closed. North Korea is launching missile tests. So this is a great opportunity, because usually when China has allowed refugees to go, it's done it to show their displeasure with the missile tests. So we have a unique opportunity here. So I think that's really important. I want to just make sure to bring that up. We just had Save North Korean Refugees Day, as a matter of fact, but this is a chance to rescue hundreds of North Koreans.
We prepare many forums and, many things to hear the witness from the North Korean defectors about all the, inside the story. But, today's interview is a real things that, we realized again that, how important, as a Korean, North Korean, also, we are one same ethnic, and, the importance of, how we can improve the lives, better as soon as possible, and sooner. We're hoping for always free and unified Korea. We dream that come true, as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Dr. Scholte.
It's been great being with you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.